Okay, so I've given it a little bit of time, let everything sink in, let's review the movie. Hi, I'm Danny Quinn, and welcome back to First Impressions. After a little bit of a quiet period, I'm back for good, and what better way to announce my big return than by reviewing Avengers Infinity War. The plot of the movie is that the mighty and powerful Thanos, played by Josh Brolin, is travelling around in search of the Infinity Stones, which would give him the power to wipe out half of the universe. So it's up to the Avengers, who are still torn and divided after the events of Captain America Civil War, to work together to try and stop him, but they soon find that even the combined might of the Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy may not be enough to stop him. So this movie has been a long time coming. Ever since the character of Thanos was first teased back in the Avengers 6 years ago, we've been building up to this event with every subsequent movie. It's pretty much going to go down as one of the most anticipated movies of all time. And now it's finally here. And I actually get the chance to talk about it. And just to let you know, this review will be spoiler free, so if you haven't seen the film yet, don't worry. I might do a future video on this movie somewhere down the line where I do go more into depth about the movie and I do delve into spoiler material, but for the time being, this review is pretty much entirely spoiler free. So if this review seems a little bit shorter than usual, that's the reason why. As for the movie itself, I'd say it's very good. Not quite one of my favourite MCU movies, it's still a very solid film and a satisfying payoff to all the films that came before it. It's a very massive movie, it's very big and bombastic, it's epic, and it's a very ambitious movie too. Maybe a little too ambitious because it's trying to juggle all of these different characters from different movies, and I can see how some might find that a bit worrying because it could risk being really overstuffed, it could risk backfiring in the most spectacular way possible, but the Russo brothers managed to keep it all together. I'm quite impressed that they managed to juggle all of these different characters so effectively. Speaking of the characters, they're all very entertaining to watch. I'm amazed that the filmmakers managed to give all these characters something to do in the film, some more so than others obviously, but the movie does a very good job of balancing them all out and making them feel important in the overall storyline, for the most part at least. And the movie also does a fantastic job of making you feel the sheer desperation and hopelessness of the Avengers as they go up against Thanos. It goes out of its way to make sure that they're punished and that they're hammered to the point of despondency as much as possible. Most of the characters are put through the ringer and they're really pushed to their physical and psychological limits, as well as to make decisions that might seem irrational and out of character for them. But while the movie is an ensemble piece, it's largely Thanos' movie. In many respects, he's the main character of the movie. As far as Doomsday villains go, he might rank as one of the best. He's a major step up from villains like Steppenwolf or Apocalypse, because he actually comes across as quite intimidating and imposing for one thing. He actually feels like a legitimate threat to our heroes. I was legit terrified for the Avengers going into this movie, and brother, those fears were very much met. But what also puts him a step above other subpar Doomsday villains is that he actually feels like a largely three-dimensional character. They actually take the time to explain his motivations and even to humanise him to a certain extent. You can understand why he's doing what he's doing, even if you don't agree with it. And Josh Brolin does an absolutely fantastic job in the part. He manages to be very imposing and intimidating, but he also gives a very nuanced performance that does help elevate the material as well. And like with most MCU movies, the writing is quite solid. It's entertaining, it's got some great dialogue, and the interactions between the characters are top-notch. I know a lot of people don't particularly like the MCU's approach to humour, but on the whole, I think it's mostly very natural. There's very little of the tongue-in-cheek humour that defined the likes of Thor Ragnarok and the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Hell, even the likes of the Guardians of the Galaxy and Spider-Man, while they do have the odd one-liners and funny moments here and there, they're largely played straight most of the time. There's not really much else I can say about the movie without going into spoiler territory, so again, sorry if this review seems a bit short and a bit vague. So I guess I'll just wrap up by talking about some of the things I wasn't really a big fan of about this movie, because surprisingly, there were a few things I didn't really like about the movie. For one, I found some of the acting to be very stilted. Most of the acting I think is very solid. Robert Downey Jr. is great, Chris Pratt, Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Tom Holland, Benedict Cumberbatch, Chris Hemsworth, Bradley Cooper, Vin Diesel. Nearly everybody in this film is very good, but some of the line delivery and acting can feel a little stilted from time to time, or a little bit disinterested. And while the movie largely does a very good job of balancing out all the plot lines and characters, it does occasionally get a little bit overstuffed. This is a movie with well over 40 major players in it, so it's naturally quite understandable that some characters do end up getting more screen time than others. It never happens too frequently, but there are the likes of Chris Evans' Captain America and Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow that do kinda end up getting the short end of the stick. They show up about a tenth of the way through the movie and don't really play much of a part in it until the film's climax. And speaking of that climax, it is one hell of a gut punch. I won't say what happens, but it really did leave me feeling shocked. It's a very emotionally heavy ending, and it did leave me with a very strong feeling of melancholy. It reminds me a little bit of how I felt whenever I came out of The Last Jedi. It's a very bittersweet experience watching this film, and it's not nearly as much of a crowd pleaser as some of the other MCU films are. It's not exactly an issue per se, it's more of an observation. If you're looking for a fun, light-hearted MCU movie that really just puts a big smile on your face, you're best off looking elsewhere. But my main issue with Infinity War, personally, is that it just doesn't work quite as well as some of the other MCU movies. It doesn't quite work as well on its own. When watching it as part of the big MCU Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's really good, but if you were to watch it as a standalone movie, it just doesn't quite hold up as well as, say, the first Guardians of the Galaxy, or the first Iron Man, or even the first two Avengers. You can still watch those movies as standalone films, you can't quite do the same here. It's just so reliant on you having seen the previous movies and the attachment that you've developed to the characters as a result. And that's fine and dandy if you're like me and you've followed these characters for all these movies and you have gotten that attachment. But if you're a newcomer or you've skipped a couple of entries, I'd really recommend getting caught up on the MCU before seeing this film. And if you're new to the MCU, do yourself a favour and don't start here. All in all though, I did enjoy Avengers Infinity War. It's got great action, great humour, an excellent villain, mostly strong performances and great visuals. It's very emotionally gripping and the ending is a real gut punch. But it's not very rewatchable and it doesn't really stand on its own two feet when compared to some of the other MCU films. Because it's so dependent on your knowledge of the previous MCU films and the attachment that you've grown to these characters, that if you don't have that, you're gonna feel a little bit lost and confused. Nevertheless, if you are a fan, I think you're gonna get a kick out of this one. I'm gonna give Avengers Infinity War a 7 out of 10. So Avengers Infinity War, have you seen it yet? If so, what did you think about it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back soon with more reviews now that my schedule is somewhat clear. I can start uploading videos on a more regular basis from here on out. But in the meantime, feel free to like the video, leave a comment, or maybe even subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate that. If there's anything I can do to improve my presentation, do let me know, I'm always happy to hear. I can also be found by Facebook, Twitter, email and Instagram, links below down in the description. And until next time, I'm Danny Quinn, and I hope you have a pleasant evening.